Hey everybody, this is Elizabeth from PixelatedGeek.com, and this week we're talking with Don and Rob from Hemisphere about the upcoming release of their newest album, Unity. More info on the album and their October concert is at hemisphereband.com. And usually I just start these out by saying thanks so much for letting me talk to you guys.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting us to talk to you.
Absolutely. Now, for the listeners, can you guys just introduce yourselves real quick so everybody can know which name goes with which voice?
Sure. It's Rob Shino with Hemisphere.
I'm Don Bowman with Hemisphere.
Now, this is, of course, for the upcoming release of Unity album with Hemisphere. And I got to listen to all the tracks. I had the preview of all those things. And so I thought I would just talk for a little bit about each one of the tracks. But I wanted to know first, how did you guys meet and start working together?
Oh, my. Well, that's an interesting little tale. I had released a solo album where I actually played everything on it back in the day called River of Life. And after I did that album, it did reasonably well. I got on some radio, and I was nominated Best New Artist San Diego Music Awards. And I was looking for some way to actually perform the material. And I went into a bar called Bourbon Street back in the day. And Don Jr. was playing in the bar with a keyboard player, a good friend of ours. And the rest is kind of history. I just kind of introduced myself, and we got together, started to play some music, and then we ended up doing the first Hemisphere album together called Blue Planet Dreams. And so Don and I wrote all of that material together. And, we had a drummer and a bass player at the time. So we kind of put a full band together. And that was kind of the start of the whole Hemisphere journey, so to speak.
Nice. What is your musical background? Like, what would you say has been like your influences, and how did you get into the whole wide world of music?
Oh, God. I couldn't imagine wanting to do anything else. Well, I was playing flute and piccolo in junior high and high school, and then I picked up the baritone sax in 10th grade, and I just kind of wondered what I was going to end up wanting to do musically with it. I didn't have any real goals. I just enjoyed music. And then in college, I discovered Manhattan Transfer, and they gave me a goal. It's like, this is what I want to do. This is the reason I do music, because I want to do what they're doing and stuff like that. So I managed to incorporate, just into all my bands, I managed to incorporate both a lot of vocals as well as instrumentals. So it's like, I'm really thrilled to be doing that with Hemisphere now that Rob and I have found a whole new style to this whole band. So I think it's really good.
And Don, where did you go to college, by the way?
I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston.
Yeah, so he's actually a school musician. So we're a bit of a yin and a yang.
Yeah,
because I'm a street musician that grew up playing Kiss and Aerosmith covers.
Right.
So I'm a bit of a mess when it comes to all these school musicians that I now work with. I do end up working with Don and other folks in Hemisphere that are extremely well trained and well seasoned. I'm there to add the secret sauce of composition and inspiration of where these songs are coming from. So that's I'm sure we'll get into some of that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that kind of brings me to talking about the different influences and everything. We were mentioning before we started recording that I felt like Unity had a more eclectic feel than the previous album. And Rob was like, oh, I thought the other one had a more eclectic feel. Don, what would you say, like all the influences that went into this album particularly, what sticks out to you?
Very tight vocal harmonies. Very, very, it's even more tight vocally than it was on the previous CD. I think it's been eclectic, but we've had a nice commercial approach there too, making it very listener friendly. I would say the vocals are as Manhattan Transfer or as Carpenters-like as possible. They're very tight like that. I really like that. Adding a string quartet has been a new thing. I think that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
It's an interesting point that you make. When you use the word eclectic, I do believe all of our albums are eclectic.
Yeah.
But I think that for Hemisphere, with Unity, especially because it sits in the middle of a triad of albums with American Dreams, Unity, and Power of the People planned for 2024. The thing that I see about it is Unity being in the middle it has a lot of diverse styles, and yet the songs that we selected to put on the album are accessible to people, regardless of the genre they come from. That's not true of all Hemisphere albums, but this particular one just seems to have that, for lack of better words, a bit of radio friendliness to it. Even our promoters have told us that now that they've heard it.
Cool. I enjoyed the sort of the jumping around of different styles. I mean, over in Younger Days, you have a like folk-like feeling to it, and yet you've got Open Your Eyes, which starts out with a solo cello and goes into a classical guitar at one point, and yet towards the end you get a synthesizer, and it gets a very synthwave sound going through there. I like that sort of leaping around type of idea. Even within one song, it may kind of go into different genres. That's very fun.
Yeah. We've always tended to do that in the new incarnation since we came back in 2020 with Hemisphere. The real writing style that I've gyrated to, that I kind of drag everyone else into it, is to do mashups. So a lot of our songs, you'll hear something that's very folky, and the same song can have some prog rock stuff in it, or you can have something that is very eclectic, like Mr. Moonbeam, and yet you're going to get almost like a Supertramp vibe to it by the time we get to the end, the way we're weaving all the harmonies and the strings together and all of that. Exactly. So it's kind of, that's that mentality. It's like, a Reese's peanut butter cup of music. We want to take two things that shouldn't really belong together and put them together. And that's really our claim to fame style.
It's fun.
I mean, we even went a little ska there, I think, in some of this.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. I heard that as well. Don, did you have is it even possible to pick a favorite song on this album?
Oh, gosh. I think Open Road is a really nice, the production, the way it's gone has been really pleasing. I think that's one of my favorites.
People will get confused, Don, because we changed the title Younger Days.
I was just looking for that.
That's right. I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. You're right. Younger Days. Younger Days
is an interesting song because that's a mashup, if you will, of a feel in the chorus that's a bit Steely Dan-esque, but the outro is pure Americana, as in America, the band.
Yeah, I think so. With the vocal harmonies.
Bit of Burt Bacharach thrown in on the vocals. So that was the intent there. And it kind of worked well. Just like a lot of the things that we tend to do, especially if I'm the person bringing that portion of the idea of the song to the band, a lot of it is done very quickly, because my inspirational way of writing is to really do things and capture the moment in like 30 seconds when I'm really inspired. Sure. I'm not someone that sits down with a pad of paper for 8 hours and says, I'm going to write today. I'm going to write some really good stuff today.
Oh, man, that's tedious.
You stand up with nothing. Don can be more practical sometimes, where I'll give him something and he'll start working with it and reworking it, and he'll spend hours on it going through it, which is good because it ends up giving that substance to it. And then he jumps up out of bed at 4 a.m, grabs a guitar, starts playing, goes back to bed.
Sure. Sure.
If you ever do that, just tape what you're playing, okay? Don't lose it.
That's usually
that's when the magic happens. Absolutely.
Tape what you're playing.
Now, Rob, is that your favorite one on the album as well? Can you even pick a favorite on the album?
It would have to be by style, because if I was going to pick if I'm into 80s pop, I'm saying Blue Sky. If I'm into just what's probably the most artsy thing on the album, it's probably Mr. Moonbeam. If I'm looking at ballads, it's Open Your Eyes. And if I'm looking for something that's upbeat, that's probably Find Your Way Home or Power to the People. So it really just depends on the mood, And one of the that we try and do on a Hemisphere album is give people a little bit of a roller coaster ride. So the fact that you think after the first 2 or 3 songs what the album's about, you don't know.
Got it.
Because we're gonna morph it and change it as we go. But we are going to take you in and out in a way that makes sense from an artistic standpoint, if you will.
Right.
So we want to give people a journey.
That does. Now, I'll start with Don. Was there a song that you thought was more challenging than the others, like one that frustrated you, or you didn't think it was going to come around, or it took quite a bit of work to make it what you wanted to make it?
Well, I think Laura in the Moonlight was a bit of a workout there, just where it was going to go from where we got it. Took a while. It kind of morphed as we went, I think. Rob had quite a bit of it down, but I was trying to throw in a bridge and throw in some nice chords, and then, okay, now where do we go from here? What do we do? And going back to where we did and having the production there, I think really worked nicely.
Very nice. Actually, I was going to ask about that one, because kind of a lot of the themes of the songs seem to be sort of encouragement or possibly nostalgia. And I was trying to figure out exactly what you would say was the message that was behind Laura and Moonlight.
Well, I can tell you that one.
Go for it.
I pretty much wrote that particular piece.
You go ahead.
Laura in the Moonlight is actually about a friend of mine. And she had some difficulties in the corporate world. And in reality, it was a song about how strong she was as a person in dealing with all of that and coming out the other side just fine. And the reality of it is it's in a way a testimony to women in general, because let's face it, in today's society, they're still paid 60 cents or 70 cents on the dollar. There's still a lot of obvious, to me, biases that are gender based. And so in the end, I think Lauren in the Moonlight ended up being my personal testimony to women in general.
Nice, very nice.
That's if you listen to it and kind of have that in your mind, then you'll have an idea of where I was coming from.
Very nice. Now, was there one, Rob, for you that was more challenging that you fought against to try and make it the song that you wanted to make it?
There were two. I didn't really fight against it because Mr. Moonbeam, I already knew, was always going to be some kind of a winner. But if you listen to the orchestrations and arrangements and complexities of that song, it really took the help of Peter Sprague doing the string arrangements and Rebecca Jade on vocals and our horn section, which is Chris Glick and Paul Seaforth coming up with their own horn melody lines underneath, interweaving it all together that made it the tapestry that it is. So it's really multi-dimensional.
Very much a tapestry on that one, I think. Very much so.
It has such complexity to it, from the arrangements. And the other piece that we struggled with, at least I struggled with a little bit, with Shadowland, because we had another piece on the previous album called Home, and they're sister pieces. So Home was about homelessness. It's obvious, you can listen to it and hear the lyrics. But Shadowland was actually inspired by an article about a woman in Detroit, and she paid her mortgage for 30 years and then found out the paperwork was fake and it was bogus and everything, and she didn't own the home.
What?
And then I researched more, and I found there are actually thousands of such mortgages in Detroit, and they didn't own their homes. So it's almost a theater piece because Shadowland is about her and her story.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's very, very Broadway almost when you think about it.
Yeah, no, very.
Very reflective.
In fact, that eventually we'll write a musical, but
well,
that's 2024, 25, 26. So we have a few hours.
I thought, when I heard Shadowlands, of course, if you read C.S. Lewis and his Narnia series, there's a whole Shadowlands is basically, I don't know, any area that's not heaven, I suppose. In some cases, it's earth. In some cases, purgatory. So it's interesting that I heard Shadowlands and I immediately thought that was what you were going for. But it
was in a way because
she
her
wasn't
life
living
is a purgatory.
Yeah, exactly. That's very interesting. Before I forget, I wanted to ask about Rebel Rebel, because, of course, that is, of course, the homage to David Bowie. And I wanted to know, I don't know enough about the music industry. How does that work to record a cover of somebody else's song? What kind of permissions do you have to get?
Well, first you've torn your dress and your face is a mess.
Oh, I know, right? There you go.
That's out of that. No, but we have what we call a mechanical license, which is we're allowed to reproduce our version in audio and stream it anywhere in the world, as well as have physical pressings of it on CDs.
Sure.
There's a separate license called a sync license you have to do if you want to do your own video, such as YouTube, and that's actually even more of an onerous process and something that we didn't get yet. I'll consider it. Rebel Rebel's picked out by our promoters Tinderbox as a single, as one of the 4 singles that they're going to push on the album. So if it does well, then maybe I'll look at a sync license. But it's both more expensive and more onerous, because artists and people that own the catalog of someone like David Bowie that's passed already, they're more reluctant to give over the visual rights than they are audio rights.
That makes sense.
But either which way, the bottom line is you go to a lawyer, you get a mechanical license that gets negotiated with whoever you're dealing with. In this case, it was Chapel Music and BMI and a couple other companies that own the whole Bowie catalog. And they come back and they give you a piece of paper that says you're licensed.
Good.
That's what we have.
Gotta have that piece of paper.
So we're actually official.
Yes.
And I'm not doing a bootleg Rebel. I'm doing a real one.
No.
So you can listen with full legality, as well as the fact that most of the money will go to David Bowie's estate.
Well, so Don, I'll throw it to you now. On the song Bring the Magic Back, I had been listening to it. That's a great brass backing in there, and it sounds a lot like a live jazz performance in places, because it's everybody's little thing. Now, it was the theme of that one. It sounded like advice to 2 young lovers, but is that, in your mind, was that the meaning behind the song? What went into that one?
You'd have to ask Rob what the lyrics was. I was trying to just interpret the lyrics as, like you said, a young man and a young woman maybe trying to find themselves as well as each other. in this love-starved world. It's like, come on.
That's right. And
You help me, I help you. Do we complete each other? Do we not?
Yes.
It's like, come together.
Don Jr.'s hitting the nail on the head. It's Hemisphere's version of Footloose.
Oh, okay.
For modern young kids.
Sure.
That was the intent of that, as well as to give it that whole urban, backbeat, Steely Dan-esque feel, and combine it. Our mashup there was to take a horn section that would be more appropriate, especially the bridge section for a band like Chicago, and bring it into a Steely Dan vibe. That was the intent.
Cool.
So hopefully it merged somewhat successfully.
I think it worked. Yeah, no, I think it definitely worked. Now, on Mr. Moonbeam, there's a line in there that talks about not just a passing phase. So I interpreted the song as being accepting your true self. Is that where you were going with that one?
You can interpret it that way, and that's a good interpretation. The real genesis for the song was about the moon and the sun and the fact that they never meet. Oh. And so that's why it's called Mr. Moonbeam. And that's why, at the end, you even get the refrain of don't even try. In other words, don't try to meet the sun. You never will.
Right. Accept things as they are.
Accept things as they are and be happy with, what you can do and what you can do well and what your essence is, right? Don't try and be something you're not.
Yeah, no.
I think that really was. If we really want to distill it down, it's don't try and be something you're not.
Right. That's perfect. So, Don, were there any other songs that you would just sort of stick in your mind that you kind of wanted to talk about? Anything?
Well, like the one. It was one that Rob and Mike, our drummer, had recorded back in the 80s as an instrumental, and we picked it and decided to kind of revamp it a bit. We changed the key to make it more vocal friendly, and Rob had some lyrics on hand that kind of went with you can be what you want. You can be. I kind of channeled this Al Jarreau vibe. I think it came out really nice.
Yeah, no, it definitely did.
Yeah, it has an El Jarreau feel. It wasn't the original intention at all. The original one was real brassy with lots of horns and in your face, kind of like da da da.
Or like fifth breath.
So when I originally wrote the lyrics out, which I scratched them out as I usually do on a cocktail napkin, and a piece of tissue paper,
whatever's handy
in the studio. So it was a total mess. And then dragged that out and took that out to people. But with that song, then we got into the studio and it really started to morph in that more Al Jarreau feel. And I was like, oh, well, this can really work because
I kind of had that idea already. Max was able to just find it instantly. As soon as I mentioned, think a la Al Jarreau, like Morning, for instance, that groove just came together. It was like magic.
All these groovy musicians,
nice.
They can instantly do that. They basically have to show it to me.
How much of the music writing process for you guys is you just sitting in a room and jamming together?
It is to a degree. It is when we're deciding on forms and styles. Like we'll try. Like we had 5 different versions of Rebel Rebel before we went into the backbeat that you hear now. That's a little more reggae. Until we got there, we had 4 or 5 different versions of it. Typically what happens before the band gets together is Don and I, or me, Don and Max, or me and Don, Mike, some combination of us will get together and bring what I call the framing of the song together, which is here's a song, here's some lyrics, here's a couple chords, or a progression of what we want to do. Maybe there's a verse and a chorus and a bridge or something. Yeah. So we'll get some smaller group of Hemisphere will come together, bring a framework of a song together, and then we will get together and jam out versions of it. But we don't sit in a room and go, okay, let's jam on some stuff, and maybe as you're playing, I'm going to make up some lyrics as we're going. We don't do that at all. In fact, we never write like that, to be honest with you. It's always starts with some kind of spark and frame to it, because I think unless you're doing that, then you end up noodling a lot, which is fun, but we've all played in jam bands for decades, so we don't want to do that anymore.
Not always very productive, I suppose.
Not always very productive, and some of the members of Hemisphere, as well as because we're a bit Steely Dan-esque in the way that we do our albums, because you can see we have a lot of different guest artists, and so with that many guest artists, we have to be somewhat formulated in what we bring to them. We can't just say, oh, well, here's 3/4 of the song, and we're going to figure it out as we go. And there's 10 people in the room stare at us like, we're literally out of our minds.
I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, especially if you've got paid musicians in there. They're like, well, you're paying us to just stand around.
Well, but even then, even if you're paying people, if they're really high end and they're professional, they don't want to be just standing around sitting there. enjoy that.
Right.
And they kind of feel like you're wasting their time, which is not something that Hemisphere wants to do.
Mhm.
So, but so it's interesting. But getting back to that, the Steely Dan reference is, they spend a lot of time bringing different session musicians. I've noticed since American Dreams, we've been doing that. So we had the 5 band members and then 5 guest artists on American Dreams. Well, Unity, I hate to say it, has 12 guest artists and the 5 band members. So there's 17 musicians.
Yeah.
That does not include the string section. So add another 4 people, and suddenly we have 21 people actually performed on this album, which I think is incredible. But, to me, I'm very happy with the result. And it doesn't sound like it's having those people just to have those people. It's because they all fulfilled a particular role in certain songs or in certain places, and it just helped with the whole vibe. That's why when you go from track to track, the backing vocals are a little different, or this or that. Those arrangements are different. You can't really put your finger on it.
Yeah.
It's because, it's not exactly the same female vocalist doing the high parts there.
That's right. You can tell.
You're getting a lot of variety with that. All
right, I'll throw it to Don with this one first, and then I'll go to Rob on this. But I was very intrigued by Power to the People, because out of all of them, it's a real avant-garde kind of sound. It's different, layered. There's a lot going on. So Don's side, what would you say went into the creation of that song that you remember?
Oh God, just trying to do a chart so everyone had something to follow along with the first time we all actually played it, and it actually came together quite nicely when we did. As far as creating, Rob seemed to have a lot of that one down, and I kind of just tried to follow his vision of it. That's the one that I think went kind of ska, which I think is good. It's a style, and I think we captured quite a bit of it on that.
No, it's very interesting. So Rob, how did you get it's like an audio collage. What did you decide to put into that?
The actual intent of Power to People was to do 2 things. First of all, it is the beginning of the next album. Power to the People. The next album is called Power to the People. Mm-hmm. And so it's an introduction to drag people into our sonic world of 2024, which hasn't happened yet. Mm-hmm. But some of the songs are starting to come together. And the opening track is Power to the People, the one that you heard, but it'll be done differently. Mm-hmm. And the idea, when I sat down with Peter Sprague and told him about it, I said, well, I want the ending to be like Sgt. Pepper's Beatles. I want craziness. I need marching bands. I need horns. I need people running down the street, screaming, with their hair on fire. I don't really care. I want it to sound as insane as possible. And luckily, Peter's really good about just recording whatever I decide to drag in and put on these tracks. In one case, I had a David Bowie stylophone from the 60s, where you can hear it clicking on the keyboard as I drag it up and down and make weird buzzing noises, the same device he used on the song Space Oddity. And then I went to several of our friends, such as Jason Tipp and Under the Lake, and other musicians, and a lot of guest artists, and we had them just record a bunch of insanity without hearing anyone else's tracks.
Oh, nice.
And so then we took those 15 or 20 tracks, and then we collaged them together, and Peter did a great job bringing things in and out and all kinds of different places. In fact, you'll even hear Peter on guitar on that last track doing some crazy, weird stuff. And I think he grabbed the guitar out of my hands, because I said, I think I'm going to put some guitar on the end of the song.
Okay.
And Peter said, yeah, let's record it like this. And he started playing, and I was like, oh, I guess it's already done.
There we go.
And then I wanted to do something that was very Pink Floyd-esque. Of course, we all know Welcome to the Machine, and they suck everyone to a transistor radio. So I said, I'm going to do Hemisphere's version of that. I'm going to suck us in transistor radio, but I'm going to take them somewhere else that Pink Floyd didn't take them. Yeah. So the intent there was to finish Power to the People, have the weird calliope of craziness, and then change the channels on them and drop them into a living room where Don and I are just sitting playing acoustic guitar together.
Yeah, it's very calm in the end after all that kind of stuff.
Craziness. We want to drop people and, from the mad calliope into boom, we're going to put you in a living room with a hot mic, just Don and Rob singing with a guitar. We ended up adding some bass and little nuances to it, almost nothing else. Mm. And the actual recording of Don and I was done live in a room with no overdubs, no fixing, no nothing. Because we wanted to make it very clear that we are sitting in a room with you.
Nice.
And then the song is called Stay. It's a bonus track because we don't tell people it's on the album. It's called Stay. And
it's almost like Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, it's a bit Simon and Garfunkel-y, and I wrote it another one at 4 a.m. Before the sun came up in Honolulu, and I wrote that song. And I thought it was very poignant, and I thought, well, the song's really about someone saying to stay, but what if they don't stay? And that's why you get the sound effects at the end, the person walking away and the door closing and the ocean and everything else going on, right? Because, we've all been in situations where we wanted people to stay and they didn't.
Yeah.
Whether they're friends, lovers, whatever.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be poignant, and a poignant way to end the album and point people to the fact that there's going to be a little bit more.
Yeah, no.
We have a dessert coming called Power of the People.
And that, I noticed that if you had to pick a theme for the album, I was trying to think of what would kind of tie everything together. Encouragement really seems to be like one of the major themes. Encouragement, acceptance is certainly one. Empathy would be another one. Don, would you say there's any other themes that you noticed in the songs that you were singing? Like,
no, I think each song had its own theme, and I was trying to capture it as I went. And I just hope I did. That's all I can say.
Yeah, celebration would be another one, I would say.
Yeah. I think when I came back together, and with Mike. And the three of us said, we're going to reformulate Hemisphere. Oh, my God, it's been almost 20 years. But OK, let's go ahead and have a band again. Yay.
Sure.
What are we really going to do? And I've always had a bit of this theme from before, but even more so in the 2020 and beyond Hemisphere, which is, look, we are going to write very uplifting, positive music that, like you said, has that passion and has a message for people so that they can feel better about themselves and about their lives and share that experience with them. Because honestly, it can be a hard thing to do. And people could listen to my music and think, oh, Rob's just Mr. Happy Upbeat Camper 724. And we all know that's not true.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is, I find in art, just like in your visual art, I often see a lot of great passion and positivity in what I see. And so when people hear us or see us live, I want them to walk away with a smile. I want them to, and the only other thing I'd say is I've noticed now that we have 2 albums out under our belts with the New Hemisphere, is that all of our upbeat stuff does tend to be really positive and vain, and our ballads tend to be a message.
Yeah,
like Open Your Eyes. It's not I wouldn't say a dark song, but it is about the fact that bad things happen in the world and it doesn't change unless we do something about it.
It's life.
It's life. Shadowlands is the same way. It's a bit of a poignant song, but it's trying to point out that bad things can happen to people and we should do something about it.
Yeah, we all have to help each other.
We also help each other. So yeah, but I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the direction we definitely want to take as we close out this chapter of Hemisphere, whenever that is, that will be remembered for being positive, upbeat, and in a way spiritual about our message. And I'm not one to be all about that, but I believe more in the power and positivity of the universe. And I want to bring that message to people. And I think, the only reason I'm inspired to even write anything is because I get those positive messages sometimes just plinking in my brain. And so when I have that 30 seconds of inspiration, I should turn it into something and share it with people. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything else that we might, because that would be a great way to wrap it up, but I don't want to bring it to a close. If you guys had anything else that you wanted to talk about?
I think that was pretty much a lot of it right there.
Yeah, I just wanted to let people know, certainly, we've got the album show coming up at Humphreys. It's going to be October 21st and 22nd. Tickets are on Ticketmaster. It's really easy to find. You just type in Humphrey and Hemisphere and it'll pop right up, which is a great venue. And we're lucky to be there for 2 weekend nights in a row. It's definitely something that we're going to look forward to. The other thing is this, in just a few weeks, you'll be able to see us in San Diego Pride in the parade itself on the 16th from 10 to 3 p.m. Don Jr. and I think a total of 8 members of the band will actually be playing live on a float.
Awesome.
As close as we can get on a float. So that I won't say there aren't any backing tracks, but I will say that you're going to get some new tracks from the new album delivered as energetically as we can possibly make it.
Awesome. Very cool. Now, what is the actual release date of the new album?
The new album releases worldwide on July 12th. And so that's when it'll be shipping to national media and radio across the U.S. And we'll keep our fingers crossed during the following 3 months as we go.
Sweet.
But I'm just very happy to have put the album out. I think Unity is a powerful album in a lot of ways, and one that I'm very proud of. And I'm just really happy that Don and Max and Nate and Mike and I are all working together again. It's almost a dream come true for me because, in my musical life, Mike and I worked together for almost 20 years, and then we both went on to do different projects. And then after I did my solo album, I met Don, and Don and I worked together for about 17 years. So they had never really played together or met each other until my birthday show, which you attended, which I jokingly called the floor show because it was only 15 minutes long. So I considered to be the ultimate joke with people telling them I was going to perform and then not really perform very much. 15 minutes of fame. I did Andy Warhol's show, but it did end up putting Mike and Don and me back together, and then us asking Nate and Max to come back. So really, it couldn't have happened better for me personally. And I think that it's nice to be able to take new Hemisphere music out to the world, and I hope people enjoy it.
I'm sure they will. Now, Don, before we close it out, do you have any social medias that you're on, or a website if people want to follow you personally?
The best place to direct people is to the @Hemisphere Band site, our Facebook
and Instagram, right?
Facebook and Instagram,
and
Twitter.
Oh,
we
nice.
we have those three. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's where we will direct you. So,
yes.
Thank you so much, you guys, for letting me talk to you today. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
And it was great. Thank you, Elizabeth.